how are things?
Yeah, pretty slow, I would say, this week. A lot of work, project work has come up, so I
Hmm.
was working. And,
Okay.
but otherwise, I think the interviews that were scheduled, unfortunately, got postponed. So,
Okay.
yeah, waiting for some better news to send it across to you.
Hmm. So yeah, I think it's a matter of time more than anything else.
Yeah,
Okay. So let's start. What I wanted to talk to you guys about this week was um, the interviewing process, understanding the offers and negotiating the best offer. And this is primarily like sort of setting expectations about what kind of company do you want to head into, and what are your expectations in terms of like what do you want out of that equation, right? Like you're going to spend a lot of time sort of working at a company, but what you also want to understand is uh, in terms of your money expectations, your cultural expectations, your growth expectations. So going into that equation, having all of this knowledge beforehand sort of helps making the best out of that situation. Um, the problem is we don't have a lot of control in the day-to-day kind of setup. So picking the right environment sort of becomes very important, because if you do that, then you automatically thrive in it instead of trying to sort of battle your way upwards um, to find the right equation. Um, so let's start with today's session. Give me a second. Let me present my screen. Can you see my screen? Yes.
yes,
So last time you remember the session was about knocking on all doors. Um, Now this session is about understanding which door is the right door. And almost all doors are going to make you suffer, but which door is going to be worth it? And that's the only choice we typically have. क्योंकि काम तो hectic होता ही है, but is it worth doing is a very subjective question, and that is something that you can only sort of answer for yourself. And what I'm going to try and explore is that, is there a framework, is there a template, are there questions you can ask yourself to understand the decision better. Okay, let's start with the two-way interviews. And I want to sort of specifically stress on this two-way interview bit, because a lot of us sort of go into this mindset that interviews are very one-way conversations, and we get a little intimidated and very conscious of and very nervous because of those. Interviews are typically conversations where the interviewer is trying to extract information to match it with a specific set of requirements he has or she has. um, उनके पास एक जॉब रिक्वायरमेंट है जहाँ पर a specific certain skill set will sort of fit that profile. They're trying to sort of gauge if you are that person. So one of the important things, of course, is that you are um, giving them that information to fit that specific skill set or whatever piece of the puzzle they're trying to sort of fit for, वो उनका match हो रहा है कि नहीं, and sort of also the other way around, right? That does that puzzle sort of make sense for you to fit in also. So the number one point I want to say here is, and of course we'll discuss this a little further also, that you should always ask questions. Be curious in an interview when you're going through that interview, um, and not just about uh, what the company is like. You can obviously ask like, personal questions also sometimes, depending on, you have to read the room, of course. Uh, like what is working for that company like. A lot of people are interviewing, who are interviewing are employees technically, and they have had their own professional experience coming from other places to this place. Uh, so, depending on how much of a rapport you establish with an interviewer, ask them questions like what they do, what the company is like, what their journey has been like, what has their experience been like, what are the challenges they face, etc. So, questions that you have about the company, about the role, about what the typical employee experience has been, use that time to basically dig deeper or try and get a sense of what it is like to work in that company. But the most important thing here is to basically read the room, because if it's a person who's not very open, who's not very, who has his guard up, like, then probably they will not sort of look at this in a very favorable way. So you have to sort of navigate through that situation, using your social skills. What do you guys, any thoughts on this?
Yes, Sachit, I have a thought and a query. See, when most of the times in the interviews, we get a chance to ask questions towards the end of the interview. When the other person says, "Do you have any questions for me?"
Yeah.
And if we have prepared for this interview, we have a few questions in our mind that, hey, I will ask this question towards that time. But those questions are also for the interviewer, for the interviewee. Those questions are also in a way opportunity for the interviewee to communicate or tell more about the candidate to the employer or the interviewer. Like for example, is it okay to ask a question, why are you hiring for this role? Is this a replacement or a new headcount? Asking such question will how will the person take this?
But why do you want to know if it's a replacement or a new headcount?
I'm just just to know when an interviewer is asking why are you exploring this opportunity or why are you making this move, it it is also fair to ask that why is this role. There would be a better way to ask.
In the priority of questions, I would imagine this is just like a good to know kind of a question. Right?
Yes, fair. It is not that correct.
Like if I had 3-4 questions to ask in an interview.
For me, it is a curiosity.
So वो curiosity तो you could sort of do over a chai break when you join the company also. Right? Or
not during the process.
Not, I would say, like, if you, because you have limited time and you have like 3-4 questions, and obviously these the questions that you ask obviously are also things that will highlight your potential, right? See, what is the thought process of this person? Like when in my interviews, when I sort of ask people like, do you have any questions, I also sort of judge them on the kind of questions they ask.
Exactly.
Right? So use that opportunity to obviously like highlight your thought process. If you basically ask questions which are just general, हाँ ठीक है, मतलब what will you do with that headcount? अगर वो बोलेगा headcount, नया headcount है, तो उससे क्या पता चलेगा?
उससे एक चीज ये पता चलती है कि if it is a replacement, then tell about that role. Is that role, what was the reason last person left? It is a too hectic or demanding role. If it is a new headcount, then it's like the business is expanding. But it tells a bit about that particular role or team. Is what I think.
Like, let's say the person, he tells you that this is a replacement thing. Then there is a question of, was this voluntarily or involuntarily, right? Then there is the question of, if it was voluntarily, then you don't really care about it because the person is leaving on their own. They got a better opportunity. involuntary है तो फिर was it a performance thing, was it a behavior thing, right? uh, behavior thing वो बताएगा नहीं आपको. Performance thing में then it's a subjective thing कि what is the performance, like it's a rabbit hole of questions which is just which is not going to lead you. So think about it logically, like what will you sort of achieve by asking a certain set of questions? Right. Bismay, what were you?
Understood. So probably this is not a right question to ask in an interview.
My right or wrong sort of gets defined by your priority again. Like in an interview, your priority is to basically gather knowledge about the company, the role, the culture, trying to sort of gauge if this is the right place for you or not. Like depending on the filters that you have put for yourself, etc. So try and sort of get answers to those questions.
Understood.
Right. Bismay, what were you saying?
Right. I was saying we can maybe start with something like an interview process language and different stages of the process, and maybe who's the hiring manager for the team. If I'm speaking with HR, let's say, from the first call, something like that.
So remember the first sessions we had and the mental model that I discussed with you guys, like who are the people you're going to be working with, what is the mission of the company, what is your role going to be in the company, the three questions that are super critical to understand a job role. Use the time to basically get answers to these questions, because your day-to-day is going to be determined by the quality of the people that you're going to be interacting with. So understand who are the people you're going to be interacting with. आपके colleagues कौन हैं, आपके like who's your boss going to be. Understand the mission of the company. Of course, we're going to read up about it also. We'll discuss that. But what is it that the company's like the people's understanding of the mission is? Are they working towards it? A lot of people basically, like in the short run, they have different goals and then they think like we'll come back to it. So I would say like in the questions, when you're showing curiosity, which is a great thing, a great skill, use that time to basically get information about the company, the growth, the role, the person's experience, and the way they describe it also, because then you will get like a fair first person sort of information about what's happening inside. Okay. Second point, be transparent. When you don't know stuff, say that you don't know. A lot of interviews get derailed because when you try and faff out of your way out of the question. Ashutosh, can you mute yourself? You're getting a lot of wind, I think. So when you're trying to faff your way out of a question, the interview will be like usko pata hai ki tum faff kar rahe ho, because most times they know the answer to the question they have asked, right? So when you say I don't know, you at least try and sort of confront the fact that you don't know something, and then you can say, can I make an attempt at answering this question? So that sort of becomes an informed guess, right? And that shows that you're okay with not knowing stuff that you don't know, but you're willing to find out, or you're willing to basically go through that uncomfortable situation in a very structured format. The second thing is, when you fail to answer a question, let's say, like the person, you obviously know that you haven't been able to answer a question. Say that, I don't know the answer to the question. ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा क्या होगा, ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा you'll have to ask them, what is the answer to the question. Or if the interview basically flops because you didn't know the answer to the question, go back and like understand the answer to the question. The idea here is to basically learn from each interview. Technically, with every interview you give, your worst case scenario is that you learn something new or you practice your interviewing skills. So keep that in mind that every interview that you give will teach you something in terms of either learning how to give interviews better or basically learning something new about the questions that they ask. Your best case scenario is obviously like getting that job or at least getting a job that pays really well. So get that. Uh, 1 second, someone's at the door. I'll come back. Yeah, sorry. Cool. We're done with be transparent. Okay, so do research. Okay, this is very important because in an interview, like any other conversation, you can end up doing better if you have better rapport with the person. Like salespeople are successful if they're able to establish a better rapport with their um, you know customer. Like on a call, they never sort of start with like business. You always start with some sort of um, conversation that sort of establishes your rapport with the person. But to do that, it's always suggested that you start the 1 second. My maid is here in the kitchen. So put in the work before the interview. Um, Understand who the interviewer is. Go to their LinkedIn profile. Understand their experience. Understand what they've been up to. What their background is. Um, Learn about the company. Understand what their mission statement is. What are they trying to do? Uh, what is keeping them in the press? Is it good? Is it bad? What are the numbers like? All of this information basically helps you to get better ideas. And if you have better ideas, your conversations will go better. By conversations, I mean interviews, because at the end of the day, when you're talking to a person who's interviewing you and you know about the company and what they've been up to and who they are, what school they've been to, you find common ground, right? You try and highlight those things. Like for example, if it turns out that the person is from the same hometown that you are from, what you need to do is basically build, and we'll come to the narrative, which is the work on your story bit. You will highlight that part. Oh, like you understand that the person is from Nagpur, and you're also from Nagpur. So when you're telling them about yourself, you say, "I grew up in Nagpur," uh, very specifically, so that they catch up on it. Like they sort of, oh, you're from Nagpur, I'm from Nagpur. So automatically familiarity sort of increases, right? Um, Stuff like if they have done a certification course in analytics from some college, right? And you have done the same or you've done something similar. So stress on that fact in your story, which will help them sort of understand that, both of you have like some common ground also. So the idea here is to find common ground with your interviewer in a way that is not very obvious. Are you guys with me till now?
Yes, Sachit.
Yeah. Okay. ठीक है. Number 4 is work on your story. So work on your story, basically your narrative here should be very, very, like you should be able to tell your story from front to back to front without fumbling. That communication should be very, very effective. You should not be fumbling when you're talking about yourself. When they say like, "Oh, tell me something about yourself," or what you've been up to, etc. So this question sort of comes across in a very different, like people say it in different ways, but they mean the same thing. कि अपनी कहानी बताओ. तो जब अपनी कहानी बता रहे हो तो then like be very thorough with it. And the way to be thorough with it is basically practice. You should practice with a friend, with a parent, with a partner, even in the mirror, or the best way I think is like record yourself and then like look at that recording and then sort of give yourself feedback. Because technically that's the format that most people sort of do interviews these days anyway, like in a recorded format. So you should be able to sort of sound very confident. You should be able to practice um, your pitch very effectively. इसमें दो और चीज़ें हैं. Start with your latest experience and then work your way backwards, because लोगों का attention बहुत जल्दी wane हो जाता है. So they're not going to basically wait for you to come to the latest information after 2 minutes. So that part you should obviously like be very certain of. Then you reverse chronologically sort of go with your work experience. Are you guys with me till now? Have you guys practiced your pitch?
Yes, Sachit.
Yeah. Tell me, Ashutosh, I know you've been giving interviews. Let's hear a pitch.
Yes, Sachit. Can you please come again?
I was saying, like when someone asks you, tell me about yourself, what do you say?
Yes. So I will just tell what my script is. So my name is Ashutosh Goyal, and I am a B2B marketing professional with a 5.5 years of work experience across two large global conglomerates, namely Amazon Advertising and Aditya Birla Group. In my role at Amazon Advertising, I have been engaging with some of the large clients and helping them grow their business on Amazon while driving annual 40 crore ad revenue for Amazon. And prior to Amazon, I was working with Aditya Birla Group as a B2B key account manager, where I was handling some of their largest engagements and helping in growing business of Aditya Birla Group. Prior to this corporate experience, I was pursuing my MBA in marketing from IMT Ghaziabad, and prior to that, I was pursuing electronics engineering from JP Noida. I am from the city of Nawabs, which is Lucknow, and this is a brief about me. Over to you, Sachit.
Okay. Nice. Yeah. So I like the summary. When you go reverse chronologically, you basically talk about your impact in the role. I think it's a good pitch. Overall. One thing I would sort of tell you is you should be a little more excited about
Okay.
talking about your experience, because like if you have a monotone, right, it sort of becomes like, oh, run of the mill. Isme kuch, like if you don't find your stuff exciting, it's
Why will anyone else?
yes, correct. So the three things like like pitching में तीन चीजें बहुत important है. एक तो stressing on the right keywords. I am from IMT Ghaziabad. Like, I'm from IMT Ghaziabad versus like I am from IMT Ghaziabad. Like that sort of makes a lot of difference. Because लोगों के दिमाग में when they hear things, they basically remember keywords. They don't remember sentences.
Okay.
So what are your keywords in the pitch? When you write it down, sort of bold those things the things that you want them to remember, like Amazon hai, Aditya Birla Group hai, bringing X amount of revenue hai. So when you're saying sentences, make sure that you are stressing on those words.
Okay.
Right? Second is you got to exude confidence, of course. Like you got to be very, very confident about what you're saying. Because in your story, if you don't sound confident, then they're going to be like, oh, maybe they're not sure about who they are or what they're saying. So कुछ भी बोलो बहुत confidently बोलो तो सामने वाले को लगता है कि हाँ कुछ तो बोल रहा है. आधे टाइम तो लोगों के दिमाग में अपनी कहानी चल रही होती है कि they're thinking about the previous meeting, they're thinking about their own life problems, etc. in an interview. So when you say things confidently, it sounds automatically better to them, even if they haven't heard it. Right?
Okay.
Third thing is be excited. Right? When you're saying stuff, be excited so that they are also excited about it. I actually cracked, these 10 clients within 2 months, which was amazing within the company because no one had done that before. So it sounds like, like, kuch to kiya hai isne. So what I'm trying to say is like saying, what you say is important, of course, but how you say it is equally important. And that you have to practice because वो practice के बिना आता नहीं है. Like अगर आपने फोड़ा भी है अपने overall career में, but you don't have a good narrative to basically back that up with. Like if you can't like tell a story about your experience in a very effective fashion, then it बहुत ही फीका हो जाता है. Like it doesn't sort of reflect in a way that you want it to reflect in.
Understood, Sachit. I'll try to implement and try to practice by recording this pitch.
Yeah, you have a couple of interviews coming up. I think it's a very good time to do this.
I want to ask a question. There are times I personally, insist if it's a virtual interview that both the people switch on their cameras for a better two-way communication. At times, the interviewer, maybe due to XYZ reason, is not comfortable or say ki I would not be able to switch on my camera, and you are free to either keep it on or switch it off. In that case, should we keep it on or should we just keep
the
it
thing
off?
is that you want to give as much information about yourself as possible. So it's not really about them, it's about you, right? And
so it is better to keep it on.
It's always better to keep it on. It's always like unless you feel uncomfortable, Like if you feel uncomfortable and the vibe is a bit off, then you obviously like use your judgment. Obviously, that's really. But typically, if you're confident about your pitch and you're sure about how you want to do it.
Understood.
Like as you advance in an interview rounds, the more like I don't think video off is an option even in interviews. In the early rounds, I think people, because they are like executives are trying to do filtering, etc. They at that point sort of don't want to get too involved doing it. So in those early stages, you could just be equitable, saying, is this a camera on kind of interview? Then you basically put your camera. If it's not, then you switch off your camera even if you had it on, just to establish boundaries. So, बड़ा वो judgment वाला है कि initial stages में if it's just a filtering or a screening thing, then depending on if you want an equal sort of situation, later on, obviously people want to do a camera on because they want to establish rapport before having a conversation. So that also becomes important.
Got it.
उसी बात है, why don't you guys turn on your cameras?
I want to, but I'm in a slightly, noisy environment. So it would rather distract the forum than.
नहीं आज तो दो ही लोग हैं तो it's almost like a closed door.
Okay, let me try. Allow me a minute.
इसमें एक और चीज़ बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट है. इसमें try and remember I said meditate. in the beginning, in the first session, interviews can get very, very stressful because you're going from a very neutral environment to a very stressful environment in like 0 to 1. So meditate to basically just like center yourself, to like a small 5-10 minute breathing exercise so that you are calm. You can sort of think more clearly. You can sort of go through that interview without giving yourself an anxiety attack. So meditation sort of helps there. So if you have a like an interview coming up in like half an hour, like spend 15 minutes just to sort of smoothen things out, just to like close your eyes, do a breathing exercise, etc. You'll feel much better entering the interview. Okay. Use information to get ahead. What I mean here is that let's say you are giving an interview for a big company. All these big companies have most of them have a specific process to go through an interview for a specific role. And ये सारी information available होती है online, like on Quora or Glassdoor. You can go and find out what the interview process is, what are the typical questions they ask, what are the guesstimations that people ask, what are the technical questions in that specific role. You can find out. You know how school may PYQs, like previous year questions, was like a short shot to passing the exam. It's the same thing in interviews also most of the time, especially for big companies. Like, you will not get surprised by 80 or 90% of the questions if you do your research well. Product management में guesstimations पूछते हैं लोग. Like, what are the top 10 guesstimations that people ask? You just like do an exercise with yourself, just find out and like write it down. If you know the top 10 guesstimations, even if they ask you a new guesstimation, it is not going to be very, very different from the existing one. And even if it is, you at least have practice of doing it. So find out the most popular questions, the technical questions, the guesstimations. What is it that people typically sort of ask? Yeah, Shutosh.
Hi.
Nice. So, Bismay, you're traveling, no? So, right. The last thing is assignments. Assignments करने का भी बहुत सही तरीका है. When you get an assignment, you basically ask people in that specific field or specific company to help you with an assignment. पूछ लो. There's no harm in asking people how is it that they would attempt the question or they would attempt the assignment. Typically, there's a specific framework to do a specific assignment. It's not attempting is only half the problem solved. The other half is understanding how to attempt it. Typically, there is a framework for sort of doing an assignment that people expect you to fit into when they want an assignment. Like अगर आपको कोई PNL बनाने को बोल रहा है और आप Word document में PNL बनाओगे, तो वो आपको नहीं like आगे बढ़ाएंगे. वो तो guaranteed है, क्योंकि उनको पता है कि आपको नहीं आता है. Because you chose the wrong format only, firstly. फिर within, let's say you go with an Excel, like within the Excel, what are your typical parameters, right, in a P&L? आपके, like, do you understand COGS क्या होता है? Do you understand contribution margin क्या होता है? Do you understand, what are the different kinds of expenses? What are fixed expenses, variable expenses? So, ये सारी चीज़ें basically become very important to understand from a framework. Like, it doesn't take more than half a day to understand any of this, by the way. It is just the fact that if you get to the right template, you will know what to expect, right? You will know what to sort of fill in. Because if you know the questions, then it's easier to answer them. Like within the same example, if you understand COGS का मतलब क्या है, for a specific product, you might have the information beforehand, but just because you are presented with that question, you will think about it. Um, are, are you guys clear on this? Like what I'm saying?
Yes, Sachin.
Yeah. Okay. Bismay, are you there? Okay. ठीक है.
Yeah, I'm just I'm trying to listen intently because there's too much noise outside.
From my side or?
No, background.
Okay. ठीक है. So ask people in that same field or same company to basically help you out understanding how to attempt that assignment. Take their help. If you have more time, then take their help to get the feedback on the assignment that you've done. Always GPT or YouTube that specific assignment. You will get a lot of help. To understand the approach of doing the assignment, but do the assignment yourself, because in the next round of interview they will ask you questions based on the assignment itself. So if they get the hint कि तुमने नहीं किया, तुमने कहीं से कॉपी किया है, तो फिर तो definitely it's gonna flop. So that is the interviews bit. Do you guys have any more questions on the interviewing thing?
I have one question. At times there are questions in the interview which are a bit probing about what you do, to the extent that you may be required to share certain information which otherwise is not supposed to be shared publicly. So where to draw that line, or how to tackle such questions?
So होता क्या है, a lot of interviews are just like information gathering exercises also. And वो पता चल जाता है क्योंकि like some people are just trying to sort of gather competitive knowledge by asking questions like तुम्हारे कितने clients हैं, कितना team size है. So वो line of questioning में you will understand that is this an actual interview or is it actually just information gathering. And let's say it is not an information gathering, the person is trying to just probe, and you feel that this is privileged information and you don't want to give it out, then just say politely that I'm not at liberty to disclose this number because I'm still an employee here. So, and but say that much, I'm not at liberty to say this currently.
And that is taken positively.
Technically, you would, if you were an employee at that place, the place where they're interviewing, and someone else would ask you, they would respect it. Right? तो वो वाला सीन है कि
fair, understood.
And वो सामने वाला फिर insist करता है, तो you can obviously like make this point, like tomorrow if I'm here, I will obviously respect the company's numbers as much as I respect in my current employee. So उनको कभी-कभी you have to just call it out.
Fair.
ठीक है. Bismay, anything on interviews?
One quick thing, like, is it okay to ask how soon are you expecting to close this in role for opportunity, job role or job opportunity?
You can ask, but it would sound a bit desperate, and you never want to sound desperate in a role. The thing you're hinting at is ki how much time do you have, right? But typically, what they want is the best candidate, and actually, let me rephrase that. It depends on who you are asking. And what stage of the interview are you at? If it's in the later stages and you give them a hint that you are short of time, then they will use that against you.
Right.
But what is the intent of asking this question? Because you have multiple offers, or?
Yeah, generally people ask us that whether you are hiring, whether you are interviewing for other companies, right? So yeah, in that way, it's more like a question that I also want to ask. Yeah.
So I would say like focus on the questions that are not like initially we had this discussion about good to have information and need to have information, right?
Right.
Very important to stick to need to have information because time is limited.
Got it.
Yeah, Ashutosh.
Yes, Ajit. My question is this exact question which Bismay asked was that what if the interviewer in any stage asks, have you applied to other orgs or what other roles have you applied to?
Yeah,
How
you should tell them. Yeah, I'm actively interviewing with other startups.
this should be the answer?
Yeah, of course.
Then they would say that maybe you are not very passionate about this role and org, and if any other org offers you or values you better, maybe you will go there. Not
Has anyone said
right
this to
now,
you?
but even after joining.
Has anyone said this to you?
I never say this that I have applied or I am parallelly interviewing.
नहीं यार मतलब ये तो बहुत ही you understand like when someone's applying for job roles they apply to multiple job roles irrespective of whoever it is. कोई CEO भी है, they are also having multiple conversations with different companies in a different sector, right? So the thing is to create, not to lie but not to divulge too much information also. Right? Yes, I'm interviewing at multiple places and there are active opportunities that I'm pursuing. What all companies are you interviewing with? I actually, don't want to say it right now because it is still nothing's sort of concrete right now. You don't have to go into like details just because someone asks you into.
Understood.
So it comes back to the whole two-way interview thing. If you believe that it's a one-way interview, then you will obviously feel कि हाँ मुझे सब कुछ बताना है. मतलब इसने question पूछा तो मुझे answer देना ही पड़ेगा. But mentally, if you understand that it's a two-way interview, that you are having a conversation and not everything you need to divulge just because it's been asked, you will automatically sort of navigate it better.
Okay.
And people who go down this line, when they say कि नहीं, you're interviewing with multiple places, how do I know that you only want this company, etc. They are the people you want to avoid technically.
Even if it is a kind of that coveted role or coveted org which you have been chasing for some time.
Yeah, the common sense wali cheezein na, when people sort of try and get all obsessive about it, it is nonsense. Like you will have a hard time with that person anyway because, I'm guessing that won't. If it's not your hiring manager, then it's fine. But if it's going to be a hiring manager and they are sort of going about it in this way, you have dodged a bullet technically. तो वो चीज़ें मतलब बहुत ही apparent हो जाती हैं with the line of, like I said, now the kind of questions you ask obviously reveal a lot more about you than the kind of answers you give. तो वो interviewer के लिए भी है, true. So if you're getting a lot of weird questions and like the flow of the interview is just off and you feel कि क्या पूछ रहा है ये, it's not relevant and or it's just too random, etc. You will understand that that's also a bad sign.
Understood. Thanks, Sachin.
Yeah. Next. Okay. So this is very important. There are a few things that I would like you guys to basically understand about an opportunity before you start having conversations. Or if you're in the middle of the conversation, then these things will sort of help you understand that much better. um, होता क्या है ना, like work wise nothing sort of, you gain nothing in the short run. Like all things that you basically gain are in the long run with compounding effects, and you cannot be at a workplace for a long time if the culture of the company is not right. So understanding the company culture becomes very very important at a very initial stage, because that is the environment that you will be stepping into. You can't change company's culture on your own, right, at your level. So unless you are the CEO, उसमें भी बहुत मुश्किल होता है, because leadership को फिर align करना पड़ता है. Change management is a different skill set altogether. लेकिन company culture understand करना बहुत important है, and will you thrive in that culture or not is very very important. Uh, because if you step into the wrong culture, you will sort of exit in like a 6 months or a 1 year period or 2 year period, and that's not what you want. You technically want to grow in a specific role in a specific company in that specific sector over a period of time, so that you can reap the maximum amount of benefits, so that you can build something that is substantial over time. A quick in and out is basically good for like a cash grab कि हाँ मैं 1 साल काम करूँगा फिर पैसे कमा लूँगा, लेकिन फिर like उसके बाद वर्क लाइफ बैलेंस आएगा तो फिर देखेंगे तब ऐसे का, तो ये short term thinking. um, the matter of the fact is that you have to work for 30-40 years, right? So you have to build a career for yourself. Even if you become financially independent, like say 10, 15, 20 years, you still want to do something with your time which is going to be worthwhile, right? So work wise, you still have to work for 40 years. So finding something that's substantial sort of directly correlates with culture, and culture is basically what are people talking about, how are people within the organization. तो वो कैसे करते हैं, दैट्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. एक तो सेकेंडरी डेटा है, जो ग्लासडोर है, you have all these Reddit है, you can sort of find out what are people talking about the company or a specific department or a specific person. You figure out who your future boss is going to be, you ask them, or not ask them, but like find out about that specific person from people who have worked with them, जो उसके ex reportees थे. किसी के साथ कॉन्वर्सेशन कर लो, लिंक्डइन पे मैसेज भेज दो तो रिप्लाई तो आ ही जाता है मोस्टली लोगों का. एंड पीपल हु हैव हैड बैड बॉसेस विल सॉर्ट ऑफ रिस्पॉन्ड इवन फास्टर बिकॉज दे हैव suffered through it. So right, so there's another thing you can do is like ask the HR if you can like speak to your future colleagues, right? If they can connect you to them, or you can come to the office for a day or two just to have chats, with your future colleagues, etc. You want to understand the role better, your colleagues better, and make it in a very benign fashion. I just want to, like understand the team. I want to sort of talk to people to understand the role better, etc. But once you're in, just ask very direct questions, because employees don't care, honestly. Like you can just like, if they understand there are no consequences, they will tell you क्या चल रहा है. तो वो चीज़ like is possible if you make the effort to do it. And I feel like if you are serious about a role and you want to be in that role for a long term, make this investment in understanding what the company culture is. Okay. Second thing is the company's growth and roles growth. Usually क्या सीन है कि most roles basically see phenomenal growth if the company is going through a growth in itself. Companies get outsized growth if they basically are in an industry which is growing super normally. You understand? Like sector सही चल रहा है तो मतलब company को benefit होगा, right? Company को benefit हो रहा है मतलब role को benefit होगा. तो ये बहुत ही, एंड रोल को बेनिफिट हो रहा है तो बिकॉज यू इन दैट रोल, तो यू ग्रो विद इट ऑटोमेटिकली. अगर मेहनत करोगे तो ऑटोमेटिकली यू सी योर ट्रैजेक्टरी विच इज़ हायर देन नॉर्मल. सो इट्स वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट टू अंडरस्टैंड कि ये शिप जो है, शिप एज इन द कंपनी, वो किस डायरेक्शन में जा रही है, और जो डायरेक्शन है वहाँ पर ग्रोथ कैसा है. सो अंडरस्टैंड द 18 to 24 month plan for the company. Is it headed in the right direction? Is it going to grow? Because if the company is not going to grow, you're not going to grow. If the company is going to degrow, you're also going to degrow. You probably get lesser salary next year because of pay cuts. तो ये सब भी होता है. So very very important to sort of have that understanding कि at least plan wise are they solid or not. फिर बाद में future में होता है you have no control over it, but are they sort of headed in the right direction? Is the industry that they are in sort of headed in the right direction? इसमें दूसरी चीज़ ये है कि what happens when you succeed. A lot of people sort of just try and optimize for what will happen if I fail or if I don't succeed. It becomes very very important to basically optimize for success. कि होगा क्या if I basically do the right things in the company? Is there a growth ladder or not? You know what? Like I take up a product manager role, but then does that product manager basically grow in its roles and responsibility or not is very very important, because even if you succeed, if you don't go, if there's no way to grow in that organization, then you're stuck. Like, will you get leadership opportunities or not? Or do they want like an MBA in that leadership position? Like if you get hired at a, let's say, a product manager role, and senior product manager के लिए they have this ceiling कि इसके लिए तो चाहिए हमें कि MBA करके आए कोई, because this is a people management role. So will they give it to you or not? Right? Even if you succeed as a product manager. So having those kind of sort of questions and those kind of questions answered in the beginning becomes very important. Third is understanding money and setting your expectation. So हर role का एक salary band होता है. You know, like it's not a fixed number. There is usually, let's say, a fresher role sort of goes between 25 to 35 or 40 something. You know, in any sort of industry. And technically this band you can find out on Glassdoor or Ambition Box or any of these websites that are there. So the role that you're applying for, you will understand कि अच्छा ये इतना पैसा देते हैं, is that money that is good enough for you or not? Do you guys do this, वैसे? Do you guys go and find out salary bands?
I have attempted to find out, but not always I get it. That data for a particular org or a role, it varies, and not for a lot of times it is not available also beyond some common roles.
Like where do you look? Do you look on Glassdoor?
I look at Glassdoors mostly, and if I take an example of my current org or similar orgs which are American big tech companies, mostly either the data is of US, not because this is user generated content, right? People like you and me put this content, so a lot of times I don't find that, but that is where I refer to Glassdoor. I will check Ambition Box also. There is another app called Blind, which is Blind and Grapevine, which also to an extent gives directional information about such data, about levels, about salary brackets at different levels, but there is no reliable repository.
लोगों से भी पूछ सकते हो, because secondary के अलावा you can obviously, like, once you get connected to people, they'll also sort of give you some sort of information.
लोगों से पूछने में थोड़ा सा I don't know, maybe I'm still learning it. Connecting with someone on LinkedIn for the first time and then straight away asking you, because this is slightly sensitive information and people at times are okay sharing this, or maybe they are comfortable sharing it once you have certain connection, relation or rapport with them.
So
like
don't ask them specific.
If I ask you at your org, what would be the bracket? Maybe you would be okay sharing now that we have been interacting, but generally these are sensitive information. People refrain from sharing.
So that's why you got to at least try, right? And I'm saying like trying is important because without trying you will never, फिर तो कोई chance ही नहीं है ना, तो
correct, that is the only way.
Yeah. ठीक है. Understanding inflation, very important to understand inflation, because let's say you've been in the same role at a 6 lakh rupee, let's for example Ashutosh, so let's say Amazon was paying you 10 lakh rupees for the past 2 years. That 10 lakh rupees when they started paying you versus that 10 lakh rupees now is not the same, right? Because of inflation. So the standard inflation, like typically you can keep it as a 5%. So when you go and negotiate somewhere else, they should at least be matching that inflation adjusted rate. क्योंकि अगर वो 10 लाख ही for example offer कर रहे हैं, तो that is not even worth the 10 lakh that was being offered before, because the 10 lakh has degrown by 5% year on year. So that, like, keeping that in mind becomes very important, and I'll tell you later on in the negotiation bit why it's important. The other thing is, like, expenses in different cities are different. Like a 10 lakh CTC in a tier 2, let's say Jaipur, versus a 10 lakhs in a metro city like Bangalore is very, very different. Because how much you'll be spending in your rent and household and your other expenses will be very different. Your disposable income will be zero probably in Bangalore, and will be some 40,000 in Jaipur, because just how the city expenses are. So like money sort of means different things in different settings. So वो भी, like keeping that in mind becomes important. So आपके expenses क्या होने वाले हैं, inflation क्या है, salary band क्या है, becomes important to understand what is the money aspect of the role that you're going to go into. And if it doesn't fit into that, if the money they're offering is basically 12 lakhs in Bangalore and you already are in Jaipur at a 10 lakh rupees, then that doesn't make sense, because you will end up sort of saving less money. And if money is something that is, like your top 1 or 2 things that you are trying to get out of a job, then making the switch makes no sense. So the reason to do this is because you want to understand your deal breakers. Okay. So after you do all of this, you will know ki, like what is a good number, what number is okay, what is a great number. कि मैं 12 लाख से नीचे तो नहीं जा सकता, मैं 14 lakh is a good offer, 16 is a great offer. So once you reach this level, then you can start entering a negotiation, because now you know कि तो आपका baseline क्या है, आपका midline क्या है, और like top line क्या है. Like सबसे अगर कंपनी आके बोल रही है कि 15 लाख हम दे रहे हैं, so that's a great offer. Between good and great के आपके बीच में है, then you understand कि now you're in a good place automatically. तो आपकी your happiness can come from a place of research instead of हाँ मतलब 50% hike मिल रहा है. Then you know it's better than a good offer. It's a great offer. तो और if the company basically says कि नहीं हम तो 10% hike देंगे 11 lakh rupees, you know कि 12 लाख से नीचे तो नहीं जमेगा, because move करना है, फिर inflation है, 2 साल से I've been at the same salary, etc. So it's not going to sort of work out, because it's impossible to sort of do it. So then you understand like how much upset you should be. ठीक है. Any questions on this one? Yeah, okay, move on. Follow?
No question, Sachit, from my side.
Okay. Bismay?
Good to go.
Move on. Okay, negotiation. So negotiation में सबसे पहला point है information, which I spoke about in the previous slide. Information about the company culture, information about people, about growth, about your money expectations, very, very important to have before you enter a negotiation. Because only then can you basically have that conversation. Only then can you make decisions properly. क्योंकि if you don't have information, then you are just guessing कि हाँ, फिर वो आलू खरीदने वाली बात है कि नहीं भैया 12 रुपए नहीं, 11 रुपए का दो, 10 रुपए का दो, 10 रुपए का तो देते एक्सेट्रा, like वो फिर you're not sort of negotiating properly, you're just haggling. So understand कि data, like going into a negotiation without data is just a waste of time. So do all of this research before. एक चीज़ और पता चलेगी आप लोगों को कि if the company culture is awesome, they're giving you, let's say, कम पैसा भी दे रहे हैं लेकिन कंपनी कल्चर ग्रोथ वगैरह है, तो यू स्टिल विनिंग टू मेक दैट सैक्रिफाइस. तो वो आपको पता है कि चलो ठीक है, आई विल ट्राई, बट नहीं मिलेगा तो भी चलेगा, बिकॉज द कंपनी का फ्यूचर अच्छा है, तो 6 महीने बाद आई कैन डू समथिंग. Okay. Listening before reacting, very, very important. Usually when you crack the whole thing, they will call you and they'll tell you, we are thinking of offering you this, what do you think? उस टाइम पे try and not react, try and understand कि क्या क्या दे रहे हैं. And there's a lot that basically goes into an offer. Like, there is cash, there is ESOPs, there is other benefits like, telephone का bill, internet का bill, medical insurance, remote work है, hybrid work है, full time work है, Saturdays working है कि नहीं, lunch दे रहे हैं कि नहीं, medical दे रहे हैं कि नहीं, laptop दे रहे हैं कि नहीं. All of this becomes part of the package because that's your CTC. The cost to company, is a lot of things. It's not just cash. Right? So, for example, if it's remote work versus hybrid work, how many times will you have to basically go to work will determine your expenses also. So, like a 10 lakh at a remote work versus a 10 lakh at a hybrid work is different. Okay, good. So when you understand it completely, ask them for time to think about it. Like if it's a good offer, ask them for time to think about it. If it's a bad offer, ask them for time to think about it, because either way, what you want is to basically take your time and figure out if it's a good deal or not. Usually, deals will sort of come into two buckets. One, it will be higher than your baseline. कि आपने सोचा था कि 12 लाख से ऊपर ही होना चाहिए, मतलब 14 लाख होना चाहिए, 14 लाख इज अ गुड डील. उससे ऊपर है तो देन इट्स अ गुड डील. देन यू शुड बी फेयर टू द कंपनी, सेइंग कि हाँ इन्होंने मुझे अच्छा ऑफर दिया, थैंक यू वेरी मच, आई विल जॉइन, एटसेट्रा. यूजुअली you can probably push them for like, I was expecting 16 or something, and then listen to what they say and then say acha chalo theek hai, okay, thank you very much, I'm happy to join. So if it's higher than your baseline, negotiate, but don't negotiate too hard. It sort of leaves a bad taste in the employer's mouth, because they know they are offering you a good offer, क्योंकि उनको मार्केट, उनके पास हॉरिजॉन्टल व्यू है मार्केट का. इस पोजीशन के लिए they have a lot of people applying, they know their salary bands, they know what skill set they are getting, what talent. So if you're getting a good offer, you should understand they have given you a good offer. It's not by chance कि मतलब तुम्हें अच्छा offer मिल गया है. They're being fair to you. So in the conversation, don't be too greedy. Nala, don't negotiate too hard, is the point. Now comes the problematic part when the offer is lower than your baseline expectation. Now, depending on how low it is, if it's, let's say, you thought 14 is a good number and it is like at a 13, then sort of use, let's say, inflation adjusted sort of technique saying कि ये तो inflation adjusted salary भी नहीं है. You know, I was already at a 10, inflation adjust करते करते, you know, I should have at least gotten to a 11, 12, and then उसके ऊपर you're not giving me 10% also, for example. Or you say like, you know, because I'm going to move cities for this, my expenses are going to increase. This is not going to cover my expenses. I'll probably end up making less money than I am currently. So it's not making sense, etc. I think a good offer would be at least 15 or 16. And I'll tell you why it's important to sort of go up than the number that you want. If you ask for a, let's say you're at a 10 and you ask for a 15 and they are offering you 11, they will not give you 15, they will give you somewhere like 12 or 13, right? Because वो बीच में आता है. जैसे आप दुकानदार को बोलते हो कि आप वो 15 रुपए का बोल रहा है, आप 10 रुपए बोल रहे हो, वो 10, हाँ, वो 15 रुपए बोल रहा है, आप 10 रुपए बोल रहे हो, तो 12 रुपए में आएगा ज़्यादा, उससे नीचे. He's not going to give you your number, for example. So none of the employers is going to sort of give you the number that you want. So quote a number which is higher than your number, because then they will come somewhere in the middle. So have that in mind कि आपका, you know, what is the number that you want to at least hit. Like 12 is the number that is non-negotiable, to at least reach a 13 or a 14. But to reach a 13, 14, you will have to quote like 15, 16. ये बहुत important है, because it is hard to back off from this once they give you something. Because they'll be like, नहीं अच्छा अब तो बढ़ा दिया. Then you'll be like, नहीं मुझे तो इतना चाहिए. Then they're like, नहीं इतना तो हम नहीं कर सकते. Then it's hard for you to sort of, you know, negotiate further, because they made a compromise. They want you to also make a compromise, etc. And it's a good faith to basically, you know, come in the middle. Now there's another thing, which is when there is a major difference in what they're offering you and what your expectation is. Let's say you're at a 10 and they give you 11 and you were at least expecting 14, right? And these are like 10% ki jagah 40%, like you wanted 40% because you've been at the same salary for 2 years, but they give you 10%. So यहाँ पर you have to go back and sort of get market data, saying कि, you know, my peers at this position are getting this much money, and this is what I was expecting, because this is money that is fair. Either they will understand, or they are just, you know, hardballing you because they expect you to negotiate for the role, or they expect कि हाँ मतलब हम बोलेंगे तो शायद मान जाएगा, etc. But negotiate hard in those cases and say like, you know, I was expecting a 15 or a 16. And depending on the company it is, they will probably go to like 12 or 13. And seeing like the other data points, then you can at least decide कि हाँ चलो ठीक है, culture ठीक है कि नहीं, growth है कि नहीं. So उसके हिसाब से then you can decide. Most of the cases when they're hardballing you, they're not giving you money, then you have to basically figure out an offer which is higher. कि मुझे वहाँ से ये offer मिल रहा है, so I'm going to join there. So if you can match that, then great. Otherwise, I can't join.
So you can say this to the person you are having this conversation that I have.
If they're not giving you what you want, you have to say all these things. But only as a last resort.
As a last resort.
Yeah. Because उसके बाद if they say कि ठीक है तो आप वहीं join कर लो, तो फिर क्या बोलोगे?
Exactly.
So I'm saying as a last resort, like use this, but use it because and just because they say like oh आपको वहाँ इतना मिल रहा है तो आप कर लो, uh, it's not the end of the conversation, right? You can obviously go back to them, with a call, and then obviously you would have to accept the terms that they have. So it's really depending on the situation that you're in and how much leverage you have. Let's say they tell you कि you're the only person we are negotiating with. So you definitely know कि you can sort of negotiate harder. Because let's say they have 7 rounds and no one's made it through 7 rounds, and you're the only person sitting there at the table, then you can say like 1-2 लाख रुपए और दे दो, या मुझे बोनस दे दो, ज्वाइनिंग बोनस दे दो, which can be a lock-in also. You don't have to add to my CTC, but I need this money right now. इसमें I'll tell you one more thing. Most like the reality is that Indian market में you don't get a lot of leeway to negotiate because of just the amount of supply there is for talent. So to be sure about what you're being offered and is it worth it, होता क्या कि like पहले 1 से 3 महीने में पता चलता है कि is the job worth doing or not. So try and at least put forward a condition कि can I join for a month as a consultant, which they won't agree to obviously sometimes, but sometimes they will. Can I join and then like in a month you will see how I am and then am I worth this much money, and I'll also basically know is it something that I'll fit into. I'm pretty sure I will show you my worth etc. तो वो एक point forward कर सकते हो to basically negotiate. If that doesn't happen, mentally do it. Go into a job thinking you are going to do this for 3 months only, and is it going to work or not. Don't make any major life decisions. Don't move your stuff. Don't find a house. Don't like find a PG to live in or find like a accommodation for a month. Go with the expectation that you're only going to be there to find out the answers to certain questions. तो 1 महीने में 1 से 3 महीने में you will basically have a clear understanding if this job is worth it or not, right? कि अगर मैं move करता हूँ अपनी life, if I change and come to basically this city to basically do this job, is it going to be worth the switch or not? And then sort of decide on it. Because a lot of pain happens when you make all the decisions in one go. When you change your job, you sort of announce it to your social circle. You basically tell your parents कि हाँ मिल गई जॉब, अब ज्वाइन करना है, वहाँ जाना है दूसरे शहर में जॉब करने के लिए, like when you have to move houses, you leave your current house, you move to a new house, you move all of that, you set up you uproot your life from one place, you try and sort of do that in this next city, etc. And then it doesn't work out, then you feel like shit because it just means a lot of changes in one go. So giving yourself that 1 to 3 months ka time frame to figure out if this job is right for you, even after taking it, becomes a good fail-safe mechanism. The other thing here is, I don't know, I remember Rahul who was asking me this, that the company is not giving him as much as they want, the first session. I don't know if you guys remember. So you're saying what to do in that situation. A lot of times, if you like the company a lot and you feel like this is a good offer but not a great offer, you could sort of set the expectation that I am going to prove my value to you in the first 6 months. And will you give me this much money if I do that? Get a in principle agreement in place. कि 6 महीने में will you give me like 16 lakh if I basically prove my worth to you? I know like right now you can't see it, but I will prove it. Like have that in place or have that in written. कि मुझे इतना पैसा तो चाहिए. Can I basically make that in 6 months or 1 year? If you can get that in an agreement, then great. But at least get it in verbal agreement with the hiring manager or like the founder or someone. उससे क्या होगा? You can like once you generate value, then they don't mind giving you more money. But उनको पता है कि तुम्हें इतना पैसा चाहिए था और starting में negotiate किया था and it became like a talking point and it was problematic and you still compromised on this because you said that you will prove your worth, and that's the bet you have taken on the company. So then it becomes easier for you to negotiate in that because then they have to reciprocate that gesture that you made कि हाँ चलो ठीक है मैं अभी 2 लाख रुपए कम लेता हूँ, but 6 महीने बाद when I show you how much value I'm adding to your company, then you have to give me this much money. Any thoughts on negotiation? What do you guys think? Questions?
I think it's just too difficult to negotiate.
It is too difficult to negotiate. Yes, of course, it's difficult to negotiate.
Yeah, I have failed it a couple of times.
Yeah, negotiation like any other skill, you have to practice. And वो करने से ही आती है. So when you say you have failed at negotiation, what do you mean? Like they said something and you were like, okay, because you were shy to ask.
Right. Generally, it was 30-40% of your current CTC or your fixed component, right? So it becomes very difficult to quote a number which is higher than that, and if you even do that, they use your CTC to negotiate you down.
So the reason, that's what I was saying. So give information when you basically say मुझे 50% हाइक चाहिए. कि मार्केट में अभी ये वैल्यू है.
Sorry, you're asking me something? Sorry.
No, I was saying कि when you basically, when they ask you what is your expectation, it's a good move to basically tell them why are you expecting that much.
Right. Yeah, like you mentioned about the market fair value in the market for the typical roles that are there in that same industry. If I would have known from referrals, if it is a referral, then it is easy. But if it is somebody, like say, even a friend or an ex-colleague working in that industry, then I can use that. But otherwise, generally, it boils down to the fact that you are earning XYZ, then 25-30% ही hike हम दे सकते हैं, इससे ज़्यादा हम will not provide. तो फिर वो negotiation के लिए और room open up नहीं होता है. even though I might have quoted a number at the initial round or maybe during the last round with the HR.
Yeah. So दो तरह के सिनेरियो, एक तो कंपनी इज अप्रोचिंग यू like an HR is reaching out to you saying, we have roles open, would you be interested in applying, etc. Then you have an upper hand because in those scenarios you can obviously say that my colleague recently shifted and he got a 50% hike at this, and I'm expecting the same. But in the other opposite, like in the other case, when you are applying, etc., then you are upfront saying कि मुझे इतना चाहिए, and does it make sense for you or not? Right? And in that case, when they basically say कि नहीं हमारा तो budget इतना है, etc., then try and find out if there are other ways they can basically give you that money, like benefits में या फिर ESOPs में या फिर cash, मतलब joining bonus में. Say that I could do a lock-in also. I don't mind doing a lock-in if you give me a joining bonus. So
right.
So
you did mention the 3 months wala, 1 month, 3 month wala process. Like, is that a very good sign? Like I've heard companies telling it, but has the candidate told it and has it been accepted widely? Because people generally, like I was hiring for my team, I would want somebody to join for a longer period of time. Right?
Yeah. The thing is, it's a last resort, last kind of thing to use in situations. The thing is, you want it, but you don't understand if it's worth it or not. In those situations, like if a company is basically paying you good money, but you don't know if you will be able to survive their culture or not. In that scenario, what do you do? Because even if it's more money, it's only going to be more money for like, let's say 6 months or something.
Right.
तो उसके बाद क्या करोगे? तो in that situation, it's good to sort of figure out a way to find out answers faster without sacrificing too much.
Right.
जैसे कंपनी लोगों को प्रोबेशन पे रखती है, you put company on the probation. Like, why can't you do it?
Security, maybe.
Huh?
Job security, I would say.
I'm saying job security का तो problem है ही ना वैसे भी. You will, if you switch companies, there is a chance that it is not going to work out. There is a luck factor also, right? That let's say your hiring manager gets changed, or the company wants you to move to a different place because वहाँ requirements ज़्यादा है, or they give you a different role because your role has become redundant in 2 months. ये सब चीज़ें you don't control at all. But my point being, like, you'll sort of at least understand what it is faster within 3 months time frame. But in this time frame, if you moved your life also, like,
right.
You asked let's say you're married, you asked your wife to basically like change roles in that city. You let's say you have kids and you basically moved your kids to that city to a different school. Or forget all of that. You basically, you have a girlfriend and you broke up with that girlfriend because you're going to move cities. So these are like, I'm just saying, like, personal life में इतनी जल्दी decide करना is not the most pragmatic thing to do. Like, if you're making the move, make the move, but make the move, don't make all the moves suddenly.
Right.
Like, when you gain more confidence, then sort of start making your moves.
Correct. Yeah.
Hey, 1-2 महीना रह लो कहीं हॉस्टल में.
Yeah, maybe service apartment or something.
Like, go back home over the weekends. ठीक है?
Yeah. Understood.
ठीक है. So guys, इस कोर्स में तो यही था. Overall, I hope you guys, this helped you guys understand the job market better, how you guys can navigate the whole job finding scenario better. Um, at least in terms of group classes, this is what I wanted to sort of tell you. But I will sort of continue these sessions. I've opened up my one-on-one calendar also, so that we can keep interacting and sort of figure out um, the best job for each of you. So I think this week sometime we can catch up, um, and I've kept the calendar open. You guys just go on the calendar, book the slot, etc. And then if I can do it, I'll confirm. And if I can't do it, then we'll reschedule to a time when I can. But let's continue in that format so that there is finality to this whole thing.
Yes, yes.
Sure.
Looking forward.
ठीक है. But any thoughts on the course?
Yes, Sachin, I would want to share my thoughts. It was a very well structured sessions. Like the whatever content you had was in a way very well structured, very well prepared for each of the session. I particularly learned a lot. It brought structure in my approach of finding jobs, especially that creating a database and then sending emails to a lot of people. That thing, it's a numbers game. The more doors you knock, the more chances you increase your chances. So definitely, it has added value to my job search process, and I sincerely thank you for starting this initiative for all of us. See, job searching for job is a stressful situation, especially in the job market, and takes a lot of effort. It would have taken a lot of your personal effort and bandwidth to dedicate time and coach a set of people we met on LinkedIn. So you have earned a lot of good karma by doing this, and hopefully we all will get our dream jobs following this process.
Yeah, that's the best reward for me actually in this situation.
Yes, I love your karma.
Sorry, what this man?
Thank you, because what I've been seeing is I had not applied for about 5-6 years now. So restarting the interview processes are a lot more difficult. Was being difficult for me. I thought कोई सामने से आएगा और call करेगा when I put my CV and things like that. But that's not the case. So I had to get into such kind of a cohort where at least I learn from the best, and thankfully you were there to guide us. So a couple of tips and tricks that I've definitely learned. At least the CV wala part, you pushed us, so I made it happen. Otherwise हर वीक चल ही रहा था, करते हैं ये वीक में करता हूँ, नेक्स्ट वीक करता हूँ, ऐसा चल ही रहा था, बट हो ही नहीं रहा था. But yeah, that's something that I built myself. And now, like I think Astro said, I think it's time for us to get the ball rolling. The ball you have basically played us, or basically give us the strengths. Now we have to play it accordingly and see how we are successful in our pursuits.
Yeah. And I want to make sure that you guys basically get that job. Like I'm invested. I was very happy last week when this guy got the job, and he's a fresher and he's been sort of struggling. So
right.
So that was quite brilliant, and that feeling of that that you guys are doing well, I think it's very rewarding in itself.
Yes.
We all would have felt great when we saw that someone followed the process and got the role. So it's a great feeling. I just want to understand. See, when you put this post on LinkedIn a couple of months back about this cohort, we see a lot. The internet is filled with such courses or coaching where people have tried kind of made this their side hustle or business, right? So what is your plan of, like, what was your intent of starting this cohort, and how do you want to scale this up? Is it just that you are doing this for helping the community, or what are your plans with this? I want to understand.
So initially, I basically wanted to gain confidence in like doing this. So for me, like helping others is obviously a big motivation. But can I do it also? And like taking courses in this format. Like I've done coaching in a very one-to-one format. Like it's easy for me to basically just like sit down with people and tell them, oh, aise karte hain, waise karte hain, because I've sort of done it so many times and I've asked people how to do it. And I have a set of mentors who I keep like going back to every time I need to, make a switch. Um, and I've realized like it helps if you have that structure in place. So can I? So there are multiple reasons to do it. Can I do it for other people? Can I help other people to basically get to where they want using what I've learned? And second is, can I gain confidence? I didn't have the confidence to basically do it in a group format also, because in a video course, like especially taking live courses, it's like I was doing it for the first time, so I thought I'll just do it and see how it goes. And I've honestly, really loved the experience of doing this week on week. And I'm also figuring out if this can become a thing. Like I don't know, can it become like a side hustle? Can it become like a project that I want to sort of drive because then I can do it properly. So all of those are unanswered questions in a way. Like for me, this project right now I'm doing it and I want to see where it goes.
Sachin, thanks so much for sharing this with us.
Yeah.